Hello, welcome, and let's talk about Transformers Rise of the Dark Spark, the penultimate video in this series of Transformers, I guess, retrospectives, although they aren't that fancy. Of course, tomorrow, or next week will be the final part of these, but next week is also holding quite a few surprises, but we are going to be talking about Rise of the Dark Spark. I want to get a few things out of the way first. Edge of reality, I don't truly blame you for 100% of the problems with this game. You were literally, kind of like with High Moon and Dark of the Moon, you were literally handed assets from both Cybertron games, that being War and Fall of Cybertron, and assets from the Dark of the Moon game, and basically told, hey, look, make a movie tie-in game in X amount of months and do it quickly. You are not to be blamed for or at least truly blamed for the quality of this game, even though this game could have been better. I don't think you're truly to blame for 100% of this. That being said, I do have some complaints that I'm going to give, but I will also want to thank you. 6 years, right? It's been 6 years since I got a PlayStation 4, and this was like one of the first games I got for my PlayStation 4, and this is just a nice little game to have on in the background, even though it's not really that substantive. It is a good enough game to just sort of like, you know, mess around with, you know, like it's not as great as the other Transformer games that we have talked about, but it's fine enough that I do like to just have it on in the background when I'm doing other crap, like watching YouTube videos. But yeah, I do wish this game was better, and we're going to talk about that. So this game, like I said, is just reuse assets from War and Fall of Cybertron and the Dark of the Moon game. And Edge of reality was not necessarily up to snuff when it came to, the assignment. They just sort of slapped a game together, and it's mildly playable because High Moon had such great mechanics in the previous game. The shooting, the being able to switch hands, the instantly transforming, all those mechanics work because they worked in the other games. That being said, I do think your health drains a little too quickly, and I've always played this game on easy. I don't think I've ever messed around with other difficulty modes, but like your health drains like that if you're not careful, and you're gonna probably see that. Yeah, you can see the health bar. You're probably gonna see that in some way, and that really does like stink, because this should be like I said, and it kind of is, but this should be just a more easier game to just put on in the background. But because of difficulty spikes in the second, 5th, and well, I actually don't remember all the levels, but I know like the first level that you play as Shockwave with, that level is just unbelievably like hard in some places, especially the end part where you gotta go to the different stations. So many things are being thrown at you, and like it's really, this game does a really good job at like overloading you at times with enemies. And I mean, I understand that you want to make it slightly challenging, but I think having characters that can easily take away your shield, that little yellow bar right there above your health bar is a shield. Having enemies that can easily just take away your shield, in an instant, I think is a sign of a bad game. And I think having difficulty spikes, like enemies just sneaking up on you, or like that Shockwave example, is just, bad, in my opinion, bad gameplay design. And certain things that, like, and High Moon was able to fix certain things from, from going from War to to Fall, and even going from Dark of the Moon to Fall, they were able to fix certain things. And I don't know, I feel like Edge of Reality, you did a really good job with like the old, like the two Spider-Man games for the PS1. I only ever played the first one on the N64, but like I believe that's the same studio. You did a really good job with the old Spider-Man games, but you just didn't have enough time, or possibly, I mean, I really want to say have enough experience, but you definitely didn't have enough time to truly make this game the best it could be. And it shows. And that rather stinks, because this could have been a good game. The reuse of assets in this game is unbelievable. You know, you have, just going down like a quick list that I can remember, in that the first level that you play with Optimus on Cybertron, those highways are the same highways from the first level of the Autobot campaign. You know, the highways of Iacon, those are the same highways. And the part where you show up at the prison, you know, you get off the highway, you get on the ground, and it's the prison. That's a segment of the stage of the level that was taken directly from Dark of the Moon. And you know, you have other things like that, like the little hallway right outside of Cliffjumper's little, you know, holding cell. You know, that big room that's holding Cliffjumper is from, you know, the hallway that you get out onto when you're escaping Shockwave's lab as Grimlock. And I don't know, like, that's just, you know, noticeable to me. There's a little segment of the final level where you got to go through these like, where you got to go through this like laser gate as Optimus, and you know, you can't get hit by the lasers, and it's in between these generators. Well, those are from the Shockwave level of Dark of the Moon. Like, there's so much from the other High Moon games that are just taken directly from, you know, that are just taken from those High Moon games, and it just becomes some sad, like, twisted knockoff. Like, you can see right here, like, my health, you know, even in the last segment, my health got significantly decreased by these enemies. And like, it's about difficulty leveling, you know, leveling out your difficulty, making sure that this game is fun to play, you know, no matter what. Like, you know, this isn't how you make a good game. This isn't how you make a fun game. I'm trying to sprinkle in compliments where I can. One thing that I can compliment is the voice acting. You know, the entire cast, except for obviously Drift and Lockdown, the entire cast from the Cybertron games are in this game. You know, and they're all giving a great performance. You know what I mean? Like, they're all doing a good job. And obviously Drift is played by a completely unique actor, but Lockdown is Greg Berger, and Greg Berger, I believe, also did some stuff for Grimlock in this game. Grimlock is another sort of problem with the game, but like, I think he also did some, you know, grunting and attack sounds for Grimlock as well. But you know, his performance as Lockdown is completely different than kind of in the movie, you know, and like, it's good enough. I will say Lockdown's motivation isn't great. Megatron's is kind of nonsensical as well. Like, I do think the story is terrible, but there is one bright spot when it comes to sort of, I guess, writing. There's a moment in is it level 6 where you play a Swindle. You play a Swindle in level 6 and 7. Level 7, the Gates of Iacon, is probably my favorite level from the game, simply because it's just kind of fun to play as Bruticus in these games, and like, Bruticus is basically untouched. Grimlock is touched, but Bruticus, who the Combiner team the Combaticons turn into, by the way, if you don't know. Bruticus is probably like holds the best sort of segment of this game, like bar none, because you know Bruticus is just fun to play as, and they didn't really touch Bruticus like they did Grimlock. I will edit that out, I promise you. So there's one part of like writing in this game that is actually pretty good. You have so obviously level 6 is what I'm talking about, but level 7, the Gates of Iacon, where you play as Bruticus, is amazing. Probably the best level of the whole game is that. That being said, in level 6, you are tasked with playing Swindle, who's played by Steve Bloom, and Swindle has to make sure that Sharpshot and Shockwave, who are both played by Steve Bloom, make sure that those guys get to the gates of Kaon. And there's a fun little exchange where Swindle's like, "Where'd you find this numbnode? His voice is so annoying." And Sharpshot's like, "Well, you're ugly." And Swindle and Sharpshot start to like bicker like children, and Shockwave has to be like, "Listen, I didn't pick either of you because of your intelligence, simply because you were useful." And that's a really funny, you know, sort of sequence of dialogue, because you know Steve Bloom is playing all 3 of them and doing some pretty unique voices for the 3 of them. But like, it's really just funny because he is, you know, because he's playing all 3 of them. And that was genuinely funny. Like, I think the writers were kind of having fun with that whole sort of exchange. But other than that, the writing is just sort of terrible. I've heard other reviewers talk about how this was supposed to be a crossover between, you know, Darn It. And I've been doing that challenge like really well. I will say the challenges in this game are like really annoying. Because I very often don't care, except for like the one that I do kind of care about, which is in the Gates of Kaon level. But you know, there's just this general understanding at the time of this game's release, and with other reviewers who are now talking about it a decade later, that this was supposed to be an epic crossover between the Bayverse and High Moon's Cybertron duology. You know, this was going to be the thing that was like, oh, like, you know, this was supposed to be the it thing. You know, we were gonna see both these universes cross over, and ultimately we didn't get that really. Instead, what we got was a very mediocre game that combined gameplay elements from both, that took the amazing gameplay system of the High Moon games and combined assets between, you know, Fall of Cybertron, War of Cybertron, and Dark of the Moon game, and into this jumbled mess. And this isn't really a true down and out crossover. And Just Cole, who sort of influenced me to make this video, I will link his video in the description below, but I'll also credit him he made almost a 2-hour video about every Transformers game actually ever made, up to Devastation. And next time I will give him his flowers once again. I'll give him credit for inspiring this video, but I'll also link his video in the description of both this game and the next game's reviews. But you know, but this isn't a crossover in the true sense of the word, of these two parts of the Transformers franchise crossing over. This is a Cybertron game for a good chunk of it, for like 10 levels, that then bleeds into an epilogue that is the ending of another game. This is literally just, you know, a Cybertron in-betweenquel sandwiched into a like 5-level game about, or that's supposed to tie into Age of Extinction. And that very much stinks, and I hate that, because this should be, I don't know, like, I just wish this game was better. And honestly, I would have used the whole like giant vortex thing to be like, oh hey, look, the arc from Fall literally just fell into the backyard of the Bayverse Transformers, and now, you know, we have like 2 Optimuses, and like, I don't know, like, I would have done something cool. Maybe, I mean, because this game is not, none of these games are ever, no movie game is ever canon to the movies. Like, this game is especially not canon to the Bayverse. So I would have just, you know, said to hell with it, and had, you know, maybe Lockdown in the, you know, maybe have, you know, Cybertron, Megatron, you know, damaged somehow. So Shockwave's like, what if we, you know, what if we revived, you know, your Bayverse Megatron and made him, you know, and used his parts to revive and to restore, you know, our Megatron. Like, oh, isn't that so, like, I don't know, I would have just done something personally cooler than what they did. And like, I'm genuinely just saddened and frustrated that this isn't a better game. And like, I will still probably play this in the background of however much longer I have either a PlayStation 4 or a 5. You know, I probably still will play this in the background of my life. But that being said, I do think that this game just could have been so much better. And I think, unfortunately, Activision may have lost the plot. As Gordon Ramsay says on TikTok a lot, I think they may have just lost the plot on this one. And you know what, I'm going to die and I don't even care. But they may have just lost the plot on this. And I genuinely wish that this was just a better game. I wish this was a simpler game. And honestly, quite frankly, even though I'm happy that the Edge of Reality team, even though they, just like High Moon got sent to Call of Duty Purgatory, very much like Beanox with the Spider-Man games, got sent to Call of Duty Purgatory after the massive failure that was, unfortunately, the Deadpool game. Edge of Reality was actually just disbanded, but I do kind of, but besides the fact that Edge of Reality, you know, that team got work, those developers got work, I do sort of wish that this game just didn't flat out exist, because, you know, it just hurts to have to sort of complain this much about a game that has genuinely given me some kind of enjoyment, mainly because after playing this game on the 360, on the Wii U, on the PS4, I can say that I can just go to my favorite levels, you know, the Sideswipe level, both Swindle levels, and the, you know, Jetfire level. I can just always constantly just replay those four levels and turn this game off a happy man. So on that note, I think I'm going to turn this game off. I'm going to leave you guys with this. Games can be good and games can be bad. All the other Transformer games that I've talked about are good. And 2 of them are genuinely 2 of the greatest games I've ever played in my entire life. And this was the one bad game that I knew I had to talk about. So I just decided to go with it. Next time, we will be talking about Transformers Devastation. Check out Just Cole's video if you have not. It is almost 2 hours long, but you can do what I did and just skip to the modern games like I did. That being said, I hope you had a very lovely day. I hope you have a very lovely week, as always. And once again, as always, God bless y'all, and until all are one.